Hey guys, what's going on? So today we are doing the top 10 SR heroes in Knights Chronicle, as it was requested when I did my top 10 overall best heroes, and we did in fact get more than 70 likes on that video. So without further ado, let's get into it. A few things to note about SRs in general is that they will have lower stats than SSRs. I think it's around 15 or 20% base stats, so once they're all completely maxed out, SSRs will just have more stats regardless of their skill set or anything like that. As a little example here, you can see we have the SSR Sid next to a level 4 SR. They're both support types. She has, 67 attack, 28 defense, 180 HP. And Sid has 80 attack, 33 defense, and 216 HP. So I know they're both extremely low level and the differences would be much more meaningful once they're higher, but just from that you can see there's already a pretty big difference. On the plus side though, SRs are much easier to get than most other SSRs you get from gacha. This isn't true for Advent heroes, granted you can run the 4-star Advents, but for any gacha heroes like Morrigan, Kane, etc., they are just going to be a lot easier to get and raise their skills, which can, put them on par with some. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Up at number 10, we have Liberto here. He's actually a 3-star Advent hero, so he is among the easiest to raise his skills because you can farm him. And it's a 3-star Advent, won't be nearly as difficult as any 4-star Advents. As for Liberto himself, he is a dark defense type. He mainly stands out due to his skill 2, guaranteeing to taunt everyone, while granting himself a shield up to 30% of his HP. Also, his normal passive will activate 2 times per battle, which is kind of an outlier. You don't see that very often. And he'll become immune to damage for 2 turns when an ally's HP drops below 50%. His level 60 hero talent isn't bad either. It grants a shield to all allies, excluding himself for 2 turns once he takes fatal damage. So naturally any dark SSR tanks are going to outclass him like Claude. So if you have Claude, obviously there's no point of really going for Liberto. Honestly, for the most part, raising SRs is more for the beginner. There are some exceptions, like some SRs that are just really good, but for the most part, SRs are to raise when you don't have the SSR equivalent / better. Up at number 9, we have Amulet, and the main thing that makes her stand out is her nice buff on her skill 2, increasing all allies' attack by up to 30% when it's maxed, and crit strike chance by 30% for 3 turns. That is a pretty nice buff. She will also prevent herself from dying once per battle. It's a pretty modest level 60 hero talent, but it's okay. Besides that, she doesn't stand out too much. I mean, her 3rd skill, could have a little bit of CC on it with this Tornado of Restraint there. 40% chance at max for 2 turns, although I would definitely put priority in the 2nd skill and raising that, because that is just all around a very, very nice buff. 3-turn buff. I mean, you could have that constantly, as the skill cooldown is also 3 turns. As a side note, she also does buff your party in the Sharon Advent, giving freeze immunity by 100% if she's in your party. And that actually brings us into number 8, which is Olive. She is actually even more important if you want to do the Sharon Advent, because she gives you charm immunity, which is very important there, as Sharon does charm a lot. Besides that though, her skill 2 is also good, much like Amulet's is. She only gives the attack buff and no crit chance buff, so it is a bit of a weaker buff, but she does hide herself for 3 turns, so if you make her like really squishy, could be good to hide her. She also has a single target nuke in contrast to Amulet's AoE, which is always nice to see for, I would say, most content. Single target is just generally better than AoE on the 3rd skill. There's also an 85% chance to silence for 2 turns. Silence isn't like the most powerful debuff or anything, but it is a pretty high chance and for 2 turns. Her main passive is alright. She'll deal more damage to a poison target, which her 1st skill can do. She'll also deal extra damage when she's hiding, which she will do with her 2nd skill. Her level 60 hero talent isn't that great though, outside of easy PvE content. So moving on to number 7, we have Esmeralda here. She is a pure DPS. And what's pretty nice about her is that all of her attacks are single target. Skill 1, Skill 2, and Skill 3 all single target, so she'd be really good on the light day for world boss and any other single target situations, like, you know, some hard advents or whatever. There's always one strong one there. She also has a guaranteed counterattack when she gets hit by a crit, and on top of having 20% bonus crit damage at all times, she'll also deal an additional 30% damage when she lasts a crit. So definitely want to build her crit, and yeah, just being a single target DPS all around, you know, she's just solid. Naturally, attack types may suffer a bit more from being SRs because the attack stats obviously going to be pretty dang important. Along with, of course, survivability, so she'll be squishy while dealing a bit less damage than other attack type SSRs, but, you know, when you don't really have too many options, she is definitely an okay one. Moving on to number 6, we have Esther, usually referred to as the budget Ramu. All of her skills are similar to Ramu. The third skill can revive up to 2 allies, but it only restores 30% of their HP. Getting that up to max, however, will restore 60% of their HP, so that will be easier than getting Ramu's up to level 6. Her second skill, unfortunately, is only a single target healing, and even at max, it's only by 60%, and she'll do a bit of passive healing with her first skill. Also, her level 60 hero talent is very similar to Ramu's. She'll just revive. Ramu does it with 100% HP, she does it with 50. And her main passive is a bit weird. She'll take less damage from 5 target attacks, and she'll also restore herself when healing an ally, which is, you know, okay, 20%, it's not bad. Especially because I would assume that would include skill 1. I really considered raising Esther for my mono dark team just to have a healer there, and she is noteworthy because she is the only dark healer, so to speak, one that can revive, one that can heal, and in a mono dark team, her skill 1 would be especially powerful, healing up to 20% of an ally's HP with every skill 1 activation. So if you want to revive her in your mono dark team, she's pretty much the only option right now. Up in number 5, we have another support, Lydia. She's actually a pretty damn good support. I mean, just her skill 2, when that's maxed out, she'll revive an ally, restore all of their HP, and increase their defense by 40% for 3 turns. That is excellent, especially considering it's on a 3-turn cooldown. Yes, that's her second skill. I think every other support has any revives on the third skill. There may be some others out there, but for the most part, it's on third skill with like a, you know, 5 to 7 turn cooldown. So an excellent revive there. Her third skill isn't bad. I just kind of have a feeling they messed that up, and skill 3 should have been skill 2 and skill 2 should have been skill 3, because that would just make more sense, although not complaining. Her skill 2 being here actually just makes her amazing. Her skill 3 heals up to 3 allies, you know, 35% at max, guaranteed to counterattack once. And her first skill is actually identical to Esther's, so that if she's like in a mono water team, she can heal up to 20% of the ally with the lowest HP. Main passive is a revive, which is always a nice little safety net there, and she has some like damage over time immunity stuff going on her level 60 hero talent. I guess if you don't have any other cleansers to take care of it, but it's also kind of weird, like mostly the reviving passives are on the level 60 hero talent, and these like more specific ones are on the main passive. So again, it kind of looks like that was switched up. But regardless, Lydia, because of mainly skill 2 being where it is, just makes her a really all-around solid support. Up at number 4, we have Aika. Yet again, another support type. There seems to be quite a few decent SR supports out there. Looking at her third skill, this is probably what I like most about her. I mean, at max, 70% of all allies, and increasing their max HP by 50%. That's pretty dang good. It does have a 6-turn cooldown though, so only use it when you're in a real pinch. Her skill 2 though can heal as well, 60% for up to 3 allies, while reducing their damage taken by 30% for 3 turns at max. Lower than that, it goes to 2 turns, and of course less of everything. Again, an identical skill 1 to both Lydia and Esther. Her main passive will have her take less damage for 2 turns at the start of the wave. She'll also have a 30% chance to charm for a turn when attacking, so that's pretty nice as well. Quite similar to Amon's level 60 hero talent in that it'll pretty much save an ally and then restore 50% of their HP. So a very good level 60 hero talent there as well. Up at number 3, we have Aristo, an attack type finally. Light attack types are always quite cool. His third skill is what really stands out to me. It'll do a lot of damage, even more naturally once it's raised to max level, but what's really cool about it is his 70% chance to make the target unable to revive for 2 turns. That's quite nice in Arena when you want to get rid of a healer and there are like revivers there like Rue and Ramu, etc, etc. There are tons of revivers, so it being single target is also nice, and depending on how many lustrous energy stacks you have while doing this, it'll do even more damage that ignores defense. You can get those stacks by using skill 1, more stacks, when you raise it higher. Also from his level 60 hero talent, you'll get 10 every time he starts his turn. And another thing I like about him and any other DPS that has a sort of safety net is they'll revive themselves. You only have 10% HP, but it's still a nice safety net there. So besides making skill 3 and skill 2 more powerful, his lustrous energy will also increase his attack by 0.5% for each stack he has with a max of 100. So I'd say he's definitely more for PvP with that unable to revive chance on his third skill there. But for any other single target situations, he will do decently well as a general damage dealer, so like in like world boss as well. Up at number 2 has to be Saya, another light attacker much like Aristo, quite similar, but one of the things that separates her is that all of her damage will ignore defense on her third skill, whereas only the bonus damage from Aristo's lustrous energy will ignore defense. Another interesting thing about Saya is she's very good for the Decaying Advent, a 4-star Advent, because just bringing her along will increase every other ally's attack by 100% there. So her skill 3, the best thing about her, ignoring defense, single target, it's all good. Can also increase the target's skill cooldown by a turn, but her other skills aren't bad either. Her skill 2 has a chance to put them to sleep, 40% at max level, and there's a chance to do additional damage to sleeping enemies, as well as criticaling them, obviously, since sleeping enemies will always get criticaled. She can also make them fall asleep with her main passive. One random enemy goes to sleep for 2 turns if she has 3 or more dream fragments, which she has a 40% chance to get with each attack. She also enters the Ghost Girl status when her HP falls below 50%, and she'll become immune to damage for 2 turns. So all around a very, very solid DPS. Naturally, if you're struggling in the Decaying Advent, she is a must-have. But with that being said, let's move on to number 1. Some of the more experienced Knights Chroniclers out there know who number 1 is gonna be. I'm gonna give you like 5 seconds to go down into the comments and write who you think number 1 is gonna be. So go down there right now, write who you think it's gonna be. And without further ado, up at number 1, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Theo. I'm just kidding, it's obviously Cordelia. She can actually and literally solo the Tayo Advent, and as we know, Tayo is one of the best heroes ever. She is actually the only SR I've actually heavily invested in, so like getting her up to 60, getting some purple stars on her, getting her some good runes, because she makes the Tayo Advent, you know, a walk in the park. It's easy with her, and without her, it'd actually be quite difficult. The only thing that's really important with Cordelia is her Searing Stacks Rage, and the fact she'll restore 3% of her own HP for each stack she has at the end of her turn, which, you know, she should always have 3 because she has a 50% chance to gain them when she attacks or gets attacked. Her actual skill set, I mean, it's, you know, pretty okay, pretty general for a tank, but it's mainly the fact she'll keep healing herself and, you know, she is really tanky. She can also provide AoE damage immunity with her skill 2, but it will consume all of her Searing Stacks Rage if you have 3 of them, so just be a bit careful with that. If you're not gonna auto Tayo, then just I would stick to using her skill 1. Of course, you know, it can just be Cordelia and Tayo there at the end, but if you don't have Ruby in there to increase the recovery rate by 100%, you're probably not actually gonna be able to solo with just Cordelia. But yeah, that'll pretty much do it for the top 10 list. Gonna go down into the comments and see how many Cordelias I see, and see how many Theos I see, and see how many Cordelias with the edited symbol on the top of the comment there are. But yeah, as it usually is with these top 10 lists, they're not to be taken super seriously or anything. It's more of just a reference, you know, my opinion. I think Cordelia, Saya, even Aristo, those are like really worth investing in, especially early game, but maybe even later game depending on what your priorities are. Like Saya is just really good for the Decaying Advent and just a generally good light DPS. You know, even if you already have Christian raised, she could be a good second DPS for something like World Boss. But yeah, make sure to tell me what you think about the list in the comments down below. Who was in here that shouldn't have been, who wasn't in here that should have been, you know, all that good stuff. But yeah, also leaving a like if you did happen to enjoy would always be greatly appreciated as well. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time.